guess kind of before we get into the nitty gritty of it, just is there anybody that's kind of out this fall, or anybody that's kind of coming back from anything in terms of injury wise?
Yeah, Devin Sheeran won't pitch this fall. He had a torn ACL, so we're not really sure on the timeline, for his return. Other than that, we're in a pretty good spot. Now you may see us be Ethan Fry, some precautions with him. He's good to swing. He won't run the bases. He had shoulder surgery right after the season, right after the regional. A lot of credit to Ethan for kind of sticking it out there. I mean, he got hurt in the 4th week of the season and was able to be a good contributor, even with that. But he should be back to full health, no restrictions by the season. And like I said, if you're not really paying attention, you wouldn't notice anything because he can hit. He'll play a little bit in the outfield, won't throw, those types of things. But outside of that, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot from a health standpoint.
With Sheeran, when was roughly this injury?
The summertime.
Okay.
Yeah. But your legs feed your arm as a pitcher.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 elements to the recovery. There is, the ACL in itself, like making sure it can move, and structurally that's in a good spot. But the last thing you want to do is end up rushing him back from that. And then there's a change in delivery and mechanics, and he's obviously a big guy, and then, putting the elbow or shoulder at risk.
Yeah.
And so there's 2 elements of it that we were going to be really careful with.
And then just, I guess, with Shores, I mean, we're talking to him here in a few minutes. Just what have you seen from him, I guess, this off season? How does he look? And just how does he kind of maybe put this injury behind him and kind of full force into next year?
Yeah, he's chomping at the bit. Like, he's been ready to face hitters for a while. He'll pitch on Sunday this weekend. Super proud of him. The 23 season, obviously everything went right. There wasn't really a ton of adversity. If you ask me, the low moment of that season was honestly when he blew his elbow out on a 97-mile-an-hour fastball against Tennessee to strike a guy out to end the inning, and knew that it would really impact our team in 24 by not having him, and it certainly did, but the credit goes to him. Like I had mentioned this, I think, to you guys the last time that we spoke. Had we advanced one more week, there's a possibility he would have been usable in the College World Series had we advanced. So he's doing great, and super happy to have him back out on the mound. He's got a great presence to everything that he does. I think he's shown some good leadership skills, with the pitching staff, and obviously an important part of what we're going to do in 2025. And it's his time. I would say, outside of Paul, I mean, you're talking about probably the most talented pitcher that we've recruited since I've been here, and he's got the right kind of character and makeup. I think we all saw flashes of that as a freshman. If I'm not, well, I know he started opening weekend, as a true freshman, so on that team. So that speaks to his ability. We had him in the games against Arkansas and Tennessee with the game on the line as a freshman. 2 great teams. So I can't wait to get him rolling.
Since he was almost healthy for even at the end of the last season, if you guys advanced, then what does this summer sort of look like?
Yeah, so
he
pitched or threw to live hitters, I believe, twice after that time. And then we went into a break, or like a stopping period, shut down. And then how we do fall baseball, we probably start later than any team in the country by design. And a big part of that is our ability to ramp the pitchers up correctly to give them the best chance to stay healthy. And so he had another 6.5 weeks plus to get going. And so he's probably thrown like 14 bullpens, and he threw in live at-bats last week. Scored incredibly high on strikes and zone percentage, getting ahead, a lot of metrics that we track. He won out on, which was great to see, because one of the things you look at when a guy hasn't pitched since April of 2023 is how quickly does the command come back, and the early returns on that for him are great.
And I think you mentioned that, the slider is a pitch that he's been working on as he's been recovering.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what were some, I guess, specific things that you guys wanted to see from that pitch, whether it's shape?
Yeah,
or
I think
location
it's
or
just,
anything?
hitting's about pitching is about deception. It's about disrupting timing of the hitter, and your ability to change speeds, go a long ways into your ability to do that. I think he's a unique, lower arm slot guy for his height. And so if that comes along, has a chance to tunnel very well between the fastball and the slider and be very difficult for a hitter to deal with. And so, we'll keep working on all of that. He's obviously a guy that's going to pitch a lot for us. So you'll see us do some different things in the fall where we're working on things with him. We may have him bring some things into an outing where he might just be able to blow a hitter away, or great sinking fastball or great changeup, where we may use that pitch a little bit more just to continue to develop it.
And do you guys have a set schedule of who's going to pitch tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow I believe Gavin Guidry, Jake Brown, Dalton Beck. We're going to have Brown and Beck as two-way players go on the first day of the weekend and get their pitching over, and then allow them to get in their recovery and then get into the position player side of it for the rest of the weekend. Connor Simon has thrown the ball well. Grant Fontenot is going to pitch tomorrow. Dylan Thompson, Cade Woods. I believe it's 8 guys. So those are the 8 for tomorrow.
I mean, just with all the newcomers that you guys have, I'm not going to ask you to pick like a couple that have stood out, but just is there a trait or two of a player that maybe you thought you were going to get that maybe you've seen that's a little bit different or better, or kind of just is there anything from any of these newcomers that you got, whether it's a transfer or a pitcher, that's kind of stood out to you above anything else?
Yeah, I think, you come to LSU, you certainly have tools, and when we're in the skill development side of things, you can really see tools. You don't really know about the competitive character and are those tools ready to be usable skill to help the Tigers win yet. I think the competing element in a lot of these inter-squad games is going to be amplified, so we can draw that out of some guys or expose, where we got a lot of work to do. And on that side of it, because you have to have both. You have to have the physical talent and the mental skill set to be able to bring those things out. I think it's been positive. I think there was so many new players and a lot of positive things out of new players. I would definitely be leaving somebody out, but I think the 4 freshman pitchers have thrown the ball incredibly well. They've thrown the ball incredibly well. When you talk about Kason Evans, Maverick Rizzi, William Schmidt, Cooper Williams, I'm very excited about that part of it. I think there's definitely some power across the team, and obviously the way SEC baseball is played nowadays, if you don't have that, it's gonna be tough. So I would say that across the new position players, relative to whether they're transfers or new players, and that's more of a general statement. But yeah, there's a lot of guys that have caught my eye, and probably be able to speak a little bit more clearer about that as we get into some games.
Sure.
Did you get the returning players together and kind of talk a bit about modeling, what you want for this team to do, to act like, because there are so many new pieces.
Yeah.
It feels like you're almost starting over.
Well, I think the good part about the players that are returning is we know a lot about them. They're here for a reason. And, in last year's case, one of the positives was how many players that we played, against the best teams in the country. They got a lot of real-time, exposure to that and have been through the program, for a couple years. I think you guys are talking to Josh today. He can tell you what fall baseball looks like here better than anybody. So he has an opportunity to use that experience to pass along to those guys to help people along. So as an example, yes, Michael, on Monday, after practice had finished, I brought the returning position players together. I think there's 6 of them. And we just talked through, okay, how did today go? Where can we help guys out here? And then yesterday was much better than Monday, largely because of those guys pushing themselves to the front. I know with the pitching staff, Coach Yeski is leaning into, Cade Anderson, obviously really talented, going to be a huge part of this thing, but great character, exemplifies everything that we want a player here to be. Guidry has a lot of competitive, successful experience. We just talked about Chase. So, yeah, that's very prevalent, and we have 8 players that were a part of the national championship team in 23, and so they got to see a great model of about as good as you could do it, from, the 4 leaders of that team, and maybe what was missing a little bit, and that's a challenge that a lot of teams that reach the pinnacle have, what the gap was or the difference. And so there's a real want to out of those guys to hold each other accountable, to work hard to get everybody on the same page. And I think that's off to a good start.
I've seen Cade be pretty high in a couple early season draft lists since he is a draft eligible sophomore. What do you think makes him so attractive to scouts, and what about his potential makes him obviously help for you guys this year?
Yeah, I think he's a very good athlete. I mean, if there's been part of me that's wanted to turn him loose as a position player a little bit. I think he could probably do fine. The need is on that side of the ball, though. So he's a great athlete. He's left-handed. He throws multiple pitches for strikes. He has some good qualities within his pitches that grade well, with professional baseball. He had successful experience, last year. Had some wins, had some good starts. Thought he was great in the postseason against South Carolina and Tennessee, in the SEC tournament. Quick inning against Wofford in one of the elimination games. And, I mean, he was elite against North Carolina in the game that we won to get back to Game 7. And, it was tough, honestly, not to be able to use him in that game. We did that looking out for his best interest. But how he looked those previous 2 weeks, trust me, there was a big part of me that wanted to use him in that game. So I think there's a lot to like, but, it's about what's ahead, and he's doing the things now that I think he needs to do to be a really good pitcher for us. Planning on him in the same vein like we talked about with Chase. You may see him work on tightening up things that maybe he wouldn't do in a real game just to get the guy out, but we feel like can advance him for the season.
You look more at it, Jason.
Yeah, he's in great shape right now. I think we've cleared some good hurdles with him, meaning, to Jaden's credit, he tried to get back last year. I think he took the mound at right around 14 months, which to me I think is still, you're going against the grain or the odds. And he wasn't quite ready. And we were able to get him to the Cape Cod League at 16 and a half months or 17 months, where, there was arm was good. There's no problem. He pitched 10 times, I believe, and got a lot of the, hey, I'm getting back to pitching after being hurt for a long time out of the way. We got rid of all of that because, he got hurt right before the season started his freshman year. So, I mean, it's essentially it was the worst time you could get hurt. It basically made it a 2-year injury, where it was a little different, like with Chase, where he got to pitch 18 and 2/3 innings, and then, got his, we threw him into the deep end of the water, start early, out of the pen, against 3, really good teams at the beginning of SEC play. So I think the Cape Cod thing was good. He performed okay, but I think we got a lot of getting back to the mound out of the way. We need to get him on the mound, and so he'll pitch on Sundays, and with the idea of at least the first scrimmage that we play against an outside opponent, he'll pitch in that game too. We want to get he might be one guy we're going to try to get his innings count up to make up for some lost time.
How impactful is it for guys like Chase and Cade to have a second year with the same pitching coach?
Huh. How about the head coach? It's great for the head coach to have that. No, I think it's not necessarily about that. I think it's about Coach Yeski, and then has so many strengths, relative to if you look 20 years in college baseball, it's hard to argue anybody's really had more success, with pitching staffs. And I think, that's great, but then it's about development, and then development's about trust and rapport. And the longer you're with somebody, you build a stronger rapport. And I think there's maybe a little better understanding of what he's pushing to the front. I know our second year, the first year I had him with me at Arizona was COVID, so we're only 15 games into it. But we hit that next fall, like kind of rocking and rolling with a lot of returners and some really good newcomers. And we went to Omaha, I feel a little bit of that same type of vibe, whether they're in the classroom doing mental skills training, when they're in the pitching lab with, him working with them mechanically, or some type of game management deal with like getting quick to the plate or securing the ball, along with working the TrackMan, the Edgertronic camera, analytics, Jamie Tecco, huge part of the development piece of the pitchers here. So I feel great about how all that's going. And now they're shifting a little bit from like that training element to now compete, like go get ahead and then go finish the guy off. And so now the pitchers need to learn how to separate from that to this. And here they have all of it at their disposal, which is great. But I think maybe a better question for, a pitcher that you talk to, the appearance of it is like it's been very beneficial that this is a second year with a pitching coach.
What have you seen from Gavin in year 3 this offseason? What have you seen?
Yeah, we had him go do a very specific development program this summer, like he was not in town, to try to attack some things that we think could help take him to another level. He went out and he did that. He's improved his body a little bit in terms of strength and size, and is in a good spot. Like I thought he threw well last week with live at bats. Obviously there's an elite outlier pitch there that he always has in his back pocket, but improving the others, I think he showed last year at the end of the year when those were good, he was really hard to deal with. And then you could get the innings count up. And so excited about that. And he'll go tomorrow, and excited to get him going.
We have time for 2 more for Jay before we go to Chips.
I'm sorry?
Are you platooning catcher?
It's just wide open. So we had a meeting yesterday with them. This is what's important. This is what you're evaluated on. So like in our live at bats last week, I think all of them hit a homer. Like, so there's real power for all 4 of the real power for all 4 of the players. They've been impressive in the hitting sessions, but the defense is the king there, and we have to get better at that spot. Alex certainly did a great job at bringing a lot of leadership skills, and we won when he caught, and that was the predominant reason. Like, he played all the time at the end because we won when he played. So can we drag that out of them by, the pitcher, like, are they a really good servant to the pitcher? Do they receive pitches really well? Game's about strikes and balls, or balls and strikes. So are they really good at that element? Are they really good at the blocking piece, so the pitching staff can throw the entire arsenal? And then they all have great arms too. Like, so the tools really stand out, but is it that X factor, we're winning when you're behind the plate? And so we've kind of come up with a really good way of evaluating that. I'm confident in all of them. Like, it's super exciting to see, how this is going to go. Might seem like a bad thing normally, but I think if we played any of them, and we probably will, throughout the season, play all of them. And excited to see how that goes.
One more?
Luis playing in Puerto Rico at the U23 World Cup, like, how did that sort of work out between him and you guys, and how do you think he did, I guess?
Yeah, so thank goodness for online classes, and so most of our conversations over the 3 weeks were more about, does the internet work where you're at? You know what I mean? To make sure that the school piece is in order. And he does always, so he's doing a great job on that front. I think it was great, to play 12 games in September And I also think, opportunity to represent your country. And, Puerto Rico is a great baseball country. And they had success. I think they won the silver medal over there. And he got to play and compete a lot. And when we were going through the recruiting process with him, and very few guys say this, like, Coach, I'm going to compete really hard for you. Like, he's like, that's kind of who he is. And so I think it was cool. I'm glad that he had an opportunity to do that. And, he missed, 3 weeks around here, but he's had 2+ weeks since then. And I don't feel like he missed anything at all by having an opportunity to go do that.
All right, thank you, Jay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Appreciate it.